before oceans, before continents, before the sun, before Earth, there was only darkness. No planets, no stars, no life. Only energy expanding into silence. And from that silence came everything. This is the violent story of how our world was born. Nearly 13.8 billion years ago, the universe as we know it did not exist. There were no stars, no galaxies, no planets, and no light crossing endless cosmic space. There was only an unimaginably hot, dense state where matter, energy, space, and time itself were compressed beyond anything human intuition can truly understand. Then, in a fraction of a second, everything changed. Space began expanding. Time began moving. Energy flooded reality. In those first moments, the universe was not silent. It was violent, filled with temperatures so extreme that even atoms could not survive. Particles collided, formed, disappeared, and formed again. The laws of physics began shaping a newborn cosmos. And although Earth would not exist for billions of years, the story of our planet had already begun. Because before worlds can exist, the universe itself must first be born. As the universe expanded, it also began to cool. Seconds became minutes. Minutes became thousands of years. For the first time, particles moving through chaos began finding stability. Protons captured electrons. The first atoms were born, mostly hydrogen with smaller amounts of helium. Simple, light, invisible building blocks that would one day shape everything. But the universe was still dark. There were no stars to illuminate the cosmic void. No galaxies to organize matter into structure. Only enormous clouds of primordial gas drifting through silence for millions of years. Yet hidden inside those clouds was the future of every world that would ever exist, including Earth. Because every ocean, every mountain, every human being would one day be built from atoms born during these silent beginnings. Gravity eventually found those ancient clouds of hydrogen and helium. Slowly, almost silently, gas began collapsing inward. Pressure increased. Temperatures rose. And after millions of years, the first stars ignited. For the first time in cosmic history, darkness was broken by light. These stars were not like the stars we see today. They were enormous, short-lived, violent, burning hotter and faster than almost anything that would come after them. Deep inside their cores, something extraordinary began. Hydrogen fused into helium. Helium into heavier elements. Carbon, oxygen, silicon. The building blocks of planets. The chemistry of life. The raw materials Earth would one day need. For the first time, the universe was no longer made only of simple atoms. It was beginning to create worlds. But the first stars were never meant to last. Their fuel burned quickly. Their cores became unstable. And when gravity finally won, they died in explosions so powerful they briefly outshone entire galaxies. Supernovas. In those final moments, the universe created something it had never seen before. Iron, gold, silicon, calcium, uranium. The heavy elements simple stars could never produce alone. Those elements were thrown across interstellar space, mixing with gas, dust, and debris. And hidden inside that expanding chaos were the materials that would one day become rocks, oceans, mountains, atmospheres, and life. Long before Earth existed, long before the sun was born, every atom inside your body was already traveling through the universe. Because before Earth was a planet, we were all stardust. Nearly 4.6 billion years ago, one cloud of ancient gas and stardust began collapsing under its own gravity. This cloud had drifted through the galaxy for millions of years, carrying the ashes of dead stars and the raw materials of future worlds. As gravity pulled everything inward, pressure increased. Temperatures rose. The cloud spun faster and faster, flattening into a giant rotating disk. At its center, something extraordinary began to form. Hydrogen fused. Light ignited, and our star was born. Sunday. For the first time, darkness gave way to light. But the sun was not born alone. Surrounding it was a vast disk of dust, rock, ice, and metal, billions of fragments orbiting through chaos. Hidden inside that disk was the future of every planet in our solar system, including Earth. Inside the newborn solar system, nothing was stable. Dust grains collided. Pebbles became rocks. Rocks became mountains drifting through space. Gravity pulled these fragments together, creating larger and larger bodies known as planetesimals. Some survived. Many did not. Collisions were constant, violent, relentless. Entire worlds were shattered before they ever fully formed. Molten surfaces glowed through darkness. Oceans of magma covered young planetary embryos. Every orbit was unstable. Every encounter carried the potential for destruction or creation. Over millions of years, one growing world began collecting more mass than the others in its region. Hot, violent, barely recognizable. This was not yet Earth. But the planet we would one day call home was beginning to take shape through fire and collision. But Earth's story was about to become far more violent. Somewhere in the inner solar system, another planetary embryo was growing, roughly the size of Mars. Scientists call it Theia. For millions of years, it shared the same cosmic neighborhood as the young Earth, orbiting the sun in unstable balance. Then gravity changed everything. Their paths crossed. Two worlds, moving at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, collided in one of the most violent events in planetary history. The impact did not destroy Earth. It transformed it. Entire oceans of magma erupted across the surface. Planetary crust vaporized into space, and billions of tons of molten rock were thrown into orbit around our newborn world. The collision with Theia left Earth shattered, but not alone. The molten debris thrown into orbit did not disappear. Gravity slowly pulled it together. Rock collided with rock. Fire met fire. And over time, a new world began to form around Earth. The Moon. Born from destruction. Forged from planetary violence. Unlike most moons in the solar system, our moon may not have formed elsewhere and been captured. It may have been born from Earth itself. And that changed everything. The moon would stabilize Earth's rotation, control its tides, influence its climate, and help create the conditions that would one day make life possible. Before oceans, before continents, Earth first needed a companion. After the collision with Theia, Earth was not a blue world. It was a planet of fire. Its surface was covered by oceans of molten rock, its sky filled with toxic gas, ash, and constant volcanic eruptions. Temperatures were high enough to melt entire continents before they even existed. Meteorites still struck the surface without warning. For millions of years, Earth looked more like a star being born than a world capable of life. But slowly, almost invisibly, the planet began to cool. And cooling changes everything. As Earth cooled, something extraordinary happened. Water vapor trapped inside the atmosphere began condensing into clouds. At the same time, icy asteroids and comets may have delivered additional water from the outer solar system. Then the skies opened. Rain began falling onto a planet still hot enough to hiss and boil. Not for hours. Not for days. Possibly for millions of years. Steam rose. Clouds thickened. The surface changed. Slowly, the first oceans began forming. For the first time in its violent history, Earth was no longer only fire. It was becoming something new. Beneath Earth's cooling crust, the planet was still alive. Heat rose from the interior. Rock melted. Pressure built. Slowly, the first solid crust began forming across the surface. Then gravity, temperature, and tectonic movement started shaping something entirely new. Islands of rock. Primitive continents. The first stable land in Earth's history. Not beautiful. Not green. Not alive. But solid. Permanent. For the first time, Earth was becoming more than a molten sphere drifting through space. It was becoming a world. And somewhere inside those ancient oceans, chemistry became biology. Molecules collided. Structures formed. Energy found patterns. And for reasons science is still trying to fully understand, matter crossed an invisible boundary. It became alive. The first life on Earth was not intelligent. It did not see, think, or speak. But it changed the universe forever. Because from that moment forward, Earth was no longer just another planet. It became the only world we know, where Stardust learned how to live.